Hello my lovely people. It's that time of year, isn't it? It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. We want something snuggly. We want to wrap up and snuggle. So what I'm making for you this month is this really versatile, really easy. This is a chunky pattern, so it won't take much to knit it up. I've done it in the chunky with merino because it's just lovely and soft. I'm putting a contrast patterned collar on the top. You can or can't, whatever you do. You can make this as big as you like. If you want a huge, great big snuggly one, you can make a shorter one. If you just want something around your neck, you make them for the kids. You can make them put on your bed if you want to go big. Let me show you how to make this beautiful, versatile, snug shawl.
Down a little alley in the heart of Kendal town is a tiny independent yarn shop. Welcome to the wonderful world of the kitten and the goat.
Right, starting the point off correctly is the trick to this one. This happens to be, whoops-a-daisies, chunky with merino. It's this beautiful blue one that's got all the other colours running through it. Excuse the state of my hands, we've just all broken out again. But there you go, such is life. Oh gosh, listen to the rain. You start with your normal stitch. That's your normal slip stitch. Now you're going to knit one, yarn over, knit one into that one stitch that gives you 3 stitches. Then you're going to knit that row to lock it all into place. Then we're going to knit one, we're going to knit into the front and then into the back of the next stitch, and we're going to knit one. It gives you 4 stitches. Then we're going to work a knit row and lock that into place. Now that you've got your point formed, it's a very simple process to increase. Always knit the first stitch, knit into the front, knit into the back, then you will knit along to the last 2 stitches, and you will knit into the front, you will knit into the back, and you're always knitting the last stitch. And then the next row you're going to lock it into place. And that, my loves, in a nutshell, is what your pattern is. Once you're set up for the point, you knit your first stitch, knit front back, knit along to the last 2 stitches, knit front back, knit one, the next row locks it into place. I will show you how I'm doing with mine. We're coming quite along. You don't have to count the stitches, you just work along to the last 2 stitches, knit front back, knit one, and it grows steadily outwards like that. Now, there are ways you can tweak the pattern. If you don't want such a deep point, you can do your increase, and then you can work 3 rows of knitting, and then do your increase, work 3 rows of knitting. It won't be as deep, you will need to go longer to get the depth. How do we keep track of it, you say? Well, you can either use a stitch counter and count your rows. Every odd row will be your increase row, every even row will be your plain knit. I do this. I'm working on an increase row at the moment, so when I've done my increase row, I'll put a 1 there, and I'll know that that's the next row. When I work my knit row, I'll put a row there, a mark there for your knit. You can, it's a technique rather than a pattern, so you can use exactly the same system with a super chunky on 9mm and work up, make yourself a super chunky. You could do it in Aran, it would look fabulous in Aran. That, I always think if you go a little bit lighter in weight, somehow it looks more classic, more classy, and this is more rustic and countrified. There's no reason that you couldn't add a pattern to it. I might do a video on that actually, in not January's but February's perhaps. But a cable pattern up there, very, very simple cable pattern. Jazz it up a bit, you could have a cable going up the side. And just go as big as you like. You put your cuff on the top, or don't put your cuff on the top. Any chunky will do it on 6mm. 2 strands of double knitting together is your chunky. You can do it on double knitting, 4mm needles. It will take you a long time. It will, but if you like working it gorgeous in the shush on a 6mm needle, that would be lovely. You will need a circular needle for when it gets long. You're not knitting in the round, you're just going backwards and forwards, but you'll need it for the length. I find if you're working a lot of stitches on plastic needles, it gets very hard to work it. But if you swap over to a circular needle, there's nothing there to hold the stitches, so they move a lot easier. Okay, that's the start of your shawl. Right, full disclosure. This is as far as I've got. The wonderful thing about this pattern is if you wanted it just a little thing around your shoulders, there's plenty there. I wanted to go even bigger. I'm not far off. You can just stop and start however you want. You can go as big or small as you like. My hands are really sore, and I'm not going to be able to get the big shape that I wanted to get. But I do want to show you how to add the contrast cuff band to it. We have got a beautiful straight edge. By keeping the outside stitch a knit stitch, doing all our growing inside, we've got a beautiful straight edge. We're going to carry on with that principle across the cuff, which is going to be a moss stitch band in a contrast colour, just to pull it all together to finish it off. This is about 2 balls, so the whole thing, by the time I finished, I want it big and snuggly for the shop, so I shall probably use 3 balls of main colour and 1 ball of contrast. I'll show you how to do the rib across the top. When you're ready to start your coloured trim, if you're going to add it, let's just scoot this round a bit. Drop that. We're going to carry on. Oh, let's just see. I didn't. Okay, this is an increase row. We're going to carry on in the same vein as we did on the bottom to increase, but we're going to change to a moss stitch pattern. So we're going to knit one. This is an increase row because I've just checked. This is where we are. It doesn't matter which row you start on, this just happens to be a moss stitch row. Right, we're going to do the pattern. Knit, purl, knit, yarn to the front, point of the needle in, yarn round, slip it back, that's your purl. Yarn to the back, point in, yarn round, bring it forward, that's your knit. You can see how it forms a different, what is it they used to say? Stab it, strangle it and throw it off the cliff. You just carry on right the way along to your yarn, increasing the other side if you're on an increase here. Those eagle-eyed of you at the back row paying attention will be saying, oh, that's what we do for a knit one purl one rib, and you are absolutely correct. And if you want to put a rib contrast on, you do that, you do exactly that. The difference between a rib and a moss is that the stitches are slightly offset, so that if you were doing a rib, you've got your bump, you would do a purl to bring the bump to the front, and where you've got a knit, you would knit to take the bump to the back, so you get smooth lines. With a moss stitch, it's the opposite way round. You got the bump at the front, so you want the bump at the back. You got the no bump, so you want a bump. You're making a little checkerboard. Bump at the front, knit to put the bump at the back. Bring it forward, take it back. You're bringing your yarn to the front to work your purl. You're taking it to the back to knit to the front, just sliding up in that gap that the needle creates for your purl and the knit. After a while you get used to it and you start doing the same actions together. Now, your last row is an increase, this row isn't an increase row, so you go to the end of the row and you knit. Don't forget, we are knitting. Make sure his little tail is tight. We are knit, knit. And you can do as wide a cuff as you like on it. It just helps when you've got a huge, great expanse of knitting. This will help reinforce the top line, give you some structure and strength to it. Right, so this is your increase. I'm not going right to the end. Not, you would of course go right to the end. I'm just showing you. I haven't finished mine yet. I love this blue with all the, you probably can't see it, but it's got loads of different shades and it's almost got some reds and things. This is the increase. Knit, front, back. Look at your next stitch. That is a knit stitch with the bump the other side. You want the bump at the front, so that becomes a purl. You want the bump the other side. You want that to come forward. There's your bump. You want that to go back. Purl, knit, purl. I do often sing along to myself when I'm doing this, even now. It's very meditative, meditating-ish. And I've done a few. You should hopefully be able to see the checkerboard pattern come to life. Yeah, you can see it. see where you've got a flat bit and a raised bit, and under the raised bit you've got a flat bit, under the flat bit you've got a raised bit. That will give you a checkerboard pattern. I'm going to work a couple of inches of pattern, I think. Honestly, this is so versatile. You can just do however big you want. Okay, you just keep going, and this will keep you lovely and warm, and we'll see you next month for next month's pattern.